But you also have to know how to interact with those guys too.
That's
You
right.
can't show up to a job site and be disrespectful. You gotta talk with them. You gotta show them that you can help them. Hey, what's your problem? What do you need help with? And you have the tools and resources to help them. And once they realize that, you gain their respect like immediately.
Welcome to the SCL podcast, filmed in the MD Acoustics anechoic chamber at their testing facility in beautiful Gilbert, Arizona. Join us in welcoming Brad Kanwischer, a senior construction manager at Hines, a leading global real estate investment management firm. Brad has extensive experience in managing complex projects, occupational safety and health, and holds LEED Green Business certifications in the pursuit of building a healthier future for us all. Brad is also deeply committed to philanthropy, notably serving as the co-chair of the Big Dig for Kids event benefiting Phoenix Children's Hospital.
Well, welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
Go ahead and would you mind telling us who you are, where you work,
Yeah,
what's
sure.
your title?
Yeah, I'm Brad Kanwischer. I'm with Hines. I'm a senior construction manager over there. Hines is a big worldwide global developer, investor, manager of real estate. We operate in 30 countries across the world, over 100 cities in the U.S., and I'm in charge of some of the construction that happens here in Phoenix.
So what kind of stuff do you guys typically work with? Are you more like residential stuff, like manufacturing? Like what kind of stuff does Hines typically do, especially here in the Phoenix Valley?
Yeah, so for the longest time, I would answer that as commercial, but now we're getting into a lot of residential type products. So multifamily is an obvious residential one. Garden style, high rise style, multifamily. But we're also getting into single family lot development. So we are basically master planning a neighborhood or a community, putting in all the infrastructure, the roadways, utilities, the grading, and then we'll sell off those lots to home builders. So in a way, that's residential, right? We're not actually going and building the homes. That's for the homeowner or the home builder. But we're going in and putting in all the infrastructure, and it becomes like a Hines branded community.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're
you've
getting
seen-
into some of that here, but we're real big in that in Texas and Colorado as well.
So you get a lot of variety then in your day-to-day projects that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I do anything from ground up office buildings to industrial buildings to multifamily apartments to some of that single family lot development stuff, tenant improvements, capital improvement projects. I work hand in hand with our property management team if they need help on some of their capital improvements and remodels and buildings. So pretty much a little bit of everything.
What's the biggest building you personally have worked on?
Yeah, that was 100 mil, which you guys were a part of in Tempe. So
How tall and how big?
yeah, 17-story high rise, over $100 million, and this is the largest project I worked on. And very happy to have Hines allow me to do that. It's pretty cool to get to do the biggest project in your life. So,
Yeah, that was an awesome project.
I was gonna say, was that one of your first like really large projects that you kind of got to manage?
The largest project before that I did was with a prior company, and it was a 9-story. So to go from 9-story to 17-story is a good jump.
It's a very big jump.
And,
Yeah.
Well, and also think about not that we're going there, but like the caissons and how it's subterranean, right? I mean,
Yeah, we went down two stories for parking,
Yeah.
below grade parking. Yeah.
I was gonna say that had below grade parking. So when you get to a project that's that big, right? That large of a project that's 17 stories tall, what are the kind of things that you run into that are problems and issues that you maybe have to figure out and maybe think outside the box, or like and how did you solve those problems?
A lot of it starts with the local jurisdiction and what they're gonna approve, either from the look of it, the use of it, how it impacts the community, the neighbors. So it all starts kind of on the political end. From there, you got to go through zoning and entitlement and get it approved before you actually start. So that's always a challenge. But then once you get past that, now you got to start building your team, and then you're starting to hire all the different consultants and understand all the challenges. How does the wind affect this building? How does the sun affect this building? How does the construction, the vibrations that like you guys helped us with, how does that affect it? We have to put in this was right across from Tempe Town Lake, which has multiple events and concerts. And, the police department was raising their hand saying, hey, we might have a problem here with a big high rise going in right next to a park. So we had to involve the police department and, make sure their needs were accommodated. So there's just always stuff. And another thing was, the light rail was nearby. And how do we get people from the light rail to the park? And make that an enjoyable experience to transfer through the 100 mil development to get to the park. And, we need to integrate some artwork. Your project qualifies to have public art in it. And what sort of artwork are you going to put in? Where are you going to put it at? How's the community going to see and interact with it? So all sorts of stuff. So my role gets to be, involved in all that and deal with all these consultants and architects and engineers, the city, contractors, so pretty much everyone.
That's fascinating. When you said you're in construction management, I pictured you just working with, like on the job site, keeping people safe, making sure materials are arriving on time. It's a lot more involved than that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, and I imagine him just sitting at a desk, being like, "Yeah, this is on track. Everything's going good."
I would think like I got all these schedules. Oh, this guy brought the glazing today.
Yeah.
Here's the cement. But it's way more than that.
Oh yeah, it's all that and everything in between. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. One of the things you actually said was you talked about like how the sun hits the building and how that would affect, I'm assuming, the things around. That now I find that fascinating because I worked on a project years ago when I was very young working on things. Where it was a car wash, and a lady said, yeah, but when the cars come out, they're going to be too shiny and it's going to reflect in our windows. Oh, maybe she wasn't as crazy as I thought.
Mm-hmm. That is a little crazy. I would challenge that a little bit, but no, we deal with that a little bit more on our end where, we have outdoor spaces, whether it be a pool where people are lounging around by a pool or an outdoor patio deck. People want to spend time outside, and it's already hot enough here in Arizona, so you don't need the sun reflecting off a big, glass high-rise building that's now reflecting down on somebody and making it, less enjoyable. So
I'm just picturing people like little bugs with a magnifying glass, and they're just getting close.
No, and there's this wasn't this was on a project a long time ago with another company I worked for, but the sun reflection off the glass actually melted the artificial turf that we put in. So there's a lot of things to consider, and some of it's live and learn, but just lots of different challenges you got to think through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, did you always know in your career this is where you wanted to be?
Absolutely not. kind of stumbled upon it, and very grateful that I did. So I was always interested in construction. My dad had his own cabinet business, and it started out in our garage, so it was always very accessible to me. And I would go in the garage and play and scoop up sawdust and watch him build cabinets. So that's kind of how I got the interest and passion. And then in high school, I spent a summer actually framing homes as a carpenter, building houses out of wood. So that was fun. I'm like, all right, this is pretty cool. I think I might want to be like a union carpenter. Work with my hands. Then some of my family and peers were kind of like, I think you're a little smarter than that. You should kind of look at going to college. And I'm like, well, this is what I want to do. So I grew up in Indiana. One of the main universities in Indiana is Purdue University. Great
One of the
engineering technology
Boilermakers.
school. Yeah, absolutely. So proud to be a Boilermaker. Went on their website, just started looking at the drop downs in terms of what schools they had and programs they had. And sure enough, under the technology category was construction management. And that was kind of my first exposure to it. And you start clicking around on it and you realize like, wow, I could actually be on big construction projects and kind of be a manager and not actually have to use my hands and wear out my body.
You mean save your back?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And I mean, I remember framing houses, carrying sheets of plywood, and it was tough, and it was hard work. And some of my dad and some of my other family members that were in construction were like, you're gonna be toast later in life. So look into this construction management program.
I wish I would have known about like construction management, because I always told myself I didn't want to work in construction.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be a laborer.
Yeah.
I didn't know that somebody had to, make sure everything worked right and went smooth and was in charge of that. And I mean, it's got to be stressful, but I mean, you're not beating up your body all the time.
Yeah.
To be fair, work doesn't get done without the construction
Absolutely.
workers,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
And so
we praise them. We're grateful for them.
absolutely. I mean, that's an obvious. And the other thing
Yeah.
is like, it takes a team to get your projects done, right? So everybody has a critical role.
Yeah.
Some
So-
people are just stronger than I am.
Yeah, that's right.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Some dude can pick up a piece of drywall with one hand
Yeah.
because he's got hands the size of bananas. He was
Yeah.
gifted.
But you also have to know how to interact with those guys too.
That's
You
right.
you can't show up to a job site and be disrespectful. You gotta talk with them. You gotta show them that you can help them. Hey, what's your problem? What do you need help with? And you have the tools and resources to help them. And once they realize that, you gain their respect like immediately.
yeah.
So you get you go, you get your degree,
Mhm.
and now you're like, you look for your jobs and stuff like that. You land at Hines now.
Mhm.
Here we are. What's the thought process in your mind as you these big projects are coming across on your plate?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, Hines was always known for big, high-rise office buildings. Things changed a little bit in 2020, if you all remember. And we're slowly getting back to the office. Everyone's kind of going back to work, return to the office. So we'll probably see some more of that here in the future.
For sure.
But right now, our focus is on kind of the living problem we have. And when I say living, I mean going back to multifamily and single-family homes and affordable homes and getting people places to live and even condos, and just the whole living sector is kind of our focus right now, especially for Arizona, because it's become such a popular.
It's a hotbed, right?
Yeah.
This place has expanded like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, good for you, good for us in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask more about making that step. Your biggest project before that 17-story office building was a 9-story office building. When that came across, I'm sure you probably didn't feel like, oh yeah, I'm ready for a 17-story building now. So as you accept something that's bigger than what you've done before, like what was your approach? Like how did you tackle something that you'd never done before and you weren't maybe 100% sure you knew what to do?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every project I do is new for me, right? So like I've never done it before. Maybe I've done some component of that or done something similar. But that's what's cool about this is you don't build the same building twice.
Every building is a prototype.
Yeah. So I always know what we're doing in the start, what the end goal is, who do we have to contact, what's our budget, what's our schedule, how are we going to stay organized, who's the team. So if you use that mentality, all the projects are kind of the same. So that's kind of my approach, and you just feel like you can kind of take on anything. You may not know, okay, let's say where I'm going to build a data center. I've never built a data center before. Plenty of people have, but I haven't. Do I know all the technical parts of it? No. I could learn that though. But knowing the management portion of it and how you get from point A to point B, that's a little bit harder to teach. So that's kind of what I know, and that's kind of what's made me successful in taking on all these new projects I haven't done before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about like some of the challenges that you run into with building like a 17-story,
Yeah.
9-story, anything really. What's one of the weirder challenges that you've had? Like, what's one of those things that kind of made you like, well, that's different. Like,
Yeah. This one's a little obscure, but I used to live and work in Las Vegas, and one of the construction projects I had seemed kind of minor. It was putting in a bunch of floor outlets, power outlets, in a mall for those little carts, kiosks that they sell sunglasses
Yeah.
and cell phone cases at. I don't remember the exact number, but it was probably a dozen plus floor outlets. Well, it was in the Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace, which is basically like a 24-hour city,
Yep.
24-hour mall. There's nightclubs that were in the mall, so a lot more foot traffic. There's restaurants in there, a lot more foot traffic than your average mall, and a lot more foot traffic than your average mall after like 9 p.m.
Yeah, that's right. It actually gets a lot. You're like,
Yeah.
it actually
I was
increases.
gonna say it gets worse as the night
Yes,
goes on.
absolutely. So in order to put these floor outlets in, we're cutting the mall's floor, with trenches wide open, and you can't leave it that way. So we had to protect them, and normally you throw some plywood over it and call it good. Well, we had to think way outside the box and kind of think what is safe for Las Vegas nightlife safe. So it was a lot more than plywood. It was plywood, rubber mats, duct taping stuff down so it couldn't peel up and trip over it, and caution tape and signage, and checking on it, every couple hours. Because you can't control what kind of goes on in the base.
Yeah, you don't want no trip hazard.
I was gonna say you got a trip hazard in a very busy area
And some
where,
tipsy.
I was gonna say where alcohol may or may not play into
Exactly.
things.
So
Oh, man.
we took pictures. Right after we set it up, we took pictures. A couple hours later to show if anything moved or whatever. But that was one of the most unique, kind of challenging, oddball things we had to do. And it wasn't. Initially we didn't even think it was going to be like that, but once you start witnessing what's going on, it became a little bit challenging.
So it's always a little exciting.
Oh, yeah.
The things that you could run into, because like you said, they're never the same.
Yeah, it's certainly not boring.
I was going to ask a question. So part of the podcast really is obviously mentorship.
Yeah.
So what kind of mentorship do you, let's say for your team, do you have mentors or do you provide mentorship? And then outside of your company, what other things are you mentoring on or tackling right now?
Yeah, we have a small local office here. So we have a team of 5 on our development team. And so we're all kind of mentor each other. It's a very small, tight-knit group. And we all work together. It's, our success is based on someone else's success. So we have a very tight-knit mentorship here locally. In terms of mentorshipping others, I'm part of Phoenix Children's Big Dig for Kids board. And what I do with that is it benefits Phoenix Children's, their cancer department. And we put on a year, event once a year. It's typically early November on a Saturday. And we raise money for that event, but the main part of it is to give those patients and their families a great day, because they've gone through a lot. Either currently they're going through cancer, or did in the past year, or their sibling is unavailable because he has cancer. It's just a tough environment to be in. So what we do is we provide a great day for these kids and these patient families to kind of escape all that. And they get to go out there and play on construction equipment, real construction equipment that is donated by plenty of the local construction companies in town. Multiple excavators out there, and kids are literally digging holes and spinning it around and filling in holes, climbing on bulldozers and
It's like the
concrete
big
trucks.
sandbox.
And, yes, and there is a big sandbox too. So there's a big sandbox, there's a bigger sandbox. It's kind of like a construction themed carnival in a way, and the rides are construction equipment and excavators. And there's a whole nother section where we have 30 plus what we call kid zone booths, which are tents with games for the kids, and they're all kind of construction themed. And it's just a great day. It's a long day. Us board members are out there at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, and the first kind of half of the day is just dedicated to the patients and their families, and then the later part of the day is for the sponsors and their families and friends. So it's just a long day, but it's a great day to see the smiles on these kids' faces. And last year we raised $1.1 million for Phoenix Children's for the cancer department. And but the money's part of it. We actually finished the program that we funded with last year's 1.1, and now we're kind of on a new program this year to start raising more money for something else.
Nice.
So pretty neat.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
For Phoenix Children's, for those that are not in Phoenix, is the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
It's the big children's hospital.
Yeah, and anyone that has kids, I hope they don't, but somebody, everyone always ends up kind of going there, even for a broken bone. There's just a great hospital that a lot of our pediatricians and other doctors will recommend you go there as well. So nobody wants to go there, but it's always a great place that they take care of the kids and the families. They do a great job. So it feels good to kind of give back to that.
Absolutely, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
How did you? So, did somebody call you up and say, "Hey, be part of this," or how did you just jump in and? How did that happen?
I had a colleague that is very engaged in events, and he's on a couple boards, and he's like, what, I can't do another one, but Brad is a great candidate to do it. So he introduced me. I had a meeting, and they basically accepted me. It was in 2020, though. Again, I kind of mentioned 2020 earlier. So
It's a weird time.
So the first event that I was on the board for didn't even happen in 2020 because of obvious reasons. So we did kind of a virtual thing. We actually filmed some of our construction job sites. It kind of made it a little bit different for them and kind of sent out a video. But since then, I've been able to go to everyone after that because it's actually happened. So that was kind of how I got involved and stumbled upon it, and it's been great.
That's awesome. I just want to point out, right, like that, it takes, if you're going to step into these roles, you're fully committed. You have fear, but you still you cast it aside, right? And it's admirable, right? Like these qualities and these characteristics. I think showing that off is awesome. So I'm glad that you're here because we can shine a light on that for a minute. Because if you don't get the credit, and the board and those that donate or volunteer their time, nothing gets done, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah, and
Thank
you guys
for doing that.
participate, which is great. We appreciate that every year. And going back to the kind of mentorship question you asked, it's about raising money. Yeah, it's about the kids with cancer, but it's also about educating these kids in our construction world and environment. Like, there's cool stuff out there. You can be an operator of this equipment. You can pour concrete, you can be a construction manager, you can be a civil engineer. There's all sorts of opportunities. So it's kind of like a little miniature career fair too for younger kids, in a very fun and unique way.
On that topic, you mentioned how you kind of talked about your story about how you got into construction management, and how that exposed you to roles that you didn't even know existed, right?
Yeah.
A little before this, you were telling us how you were thinking about becoming a master carpenter because you'd been exposed to carpentry in putting together homes. Are there other roles that you think you could have been equally happy in that you just had no idea about that you've since learned about?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, but what I can say is I knew I didn't want to sit at a desk all day, and my job certainly lets me go out to construction job sites and roam around. So in the construction world, civil engineering, structural engineering, those type of roles are a little bit more desk related. But if you can work for a general contractor or a subcontractor, those are the roles that kind of get you more out in the field. And that's kind of what I really like. So if you can find a role that's, with some sort of contractor or developer, that gets you out in the field, you're going to learn more, you're going to be exposed more, you're going to have more fun, you're not going to feel like you're stuck at your desk all day. So there's all sorts of different opportunities to do that.
Speaking of like construction and techniques, you get exposure to new products out there, sometimes not new, but new ways to build buildings or whatever. Is there anything out there that has ever stuck to you that you're like, wow, this is a fascinating way that they are building this building that you weren't aware of? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
For example, they're slapping up the glazing on the facade of a building, or the way they're drilling caissons. They're going to fit that piece of equipment right here. There's no way they're going to get that in there. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the glass one because that's one of the most bizarre ones that occurs, which I've learned multiple times that every time I see it, I still say, wow, that's amazing. So if you're doing a high-rise building with a glass curtain wall system, it's called a curtain wall because think of your windows with curtains. They just kind of drape down. Well, that's what these glazing systems do. They just drape down the side of the building, and there's structural engineering obviously involved, but they more or less just kind of clip on the edge of the building and hang over the side. They're not sitting on the concrete slabs. That's a whole nother system that does exist. It's called a window wall system, but a curtain wall sits outside the building and literally just kind of hangs there with clips into the edge of the slab. And I tell you, it is fun to watch. These guys are really good at it, and it's not that big of an operation once you see it going on, but it's amazing how they do it.
It's cool.
How do they seal the glass to each other?
There's gaskets involved, and they lock together.
Because we get phone calls,
Yeah.
right, to come back for curtain wall systems, sometimes the mullions or whatever, I can't talk about a case in Hollywood, but there was one famous chef and one famous rapper battling it out because one was making noise and the noise was going what we call flanking through the mullion, the curtain wall system.
How the wall meets up with that is a noise control.
Yeah. Anyway, that was fun.
Issue that's pretty common in those.
And that's cool that you get to see that. Like, I never get to see how it gets put together, but
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
We kind of asked, with high school students, and you didn't plan on doing construction management. That wasn't what you wanted to do necessarily. You kind of found it. So if I love the thing with the kids working on the equipment, and it gives that exposure to them. It gives that exposure to them as they get older to maybe pursue that, because they're like, man, I remember that one time I got to play with a bulldozer, or whatever, like an excavator, and I kind of want to get involved so I can go play with excavators, but that's beside the point. What's the biggest challenge that you guys run into at Hines when it comes to having new people come in? Maybe the younger kids.
Onboarding or training. Because
obviously we can't stay with just the older generation staying in this thing. We need new people to come in. Is it they need like doctorates? Do they need like PhD? Do they need master's degrees? What's kind of the thing that somebody should be looking at if that's the route they want to kind of take?
Yeah, I mean, we're always going to need the field workers out in the field, so that's always going to exist. Sure, there might be some automation to it, but we're always going to need the field workers. What we look for in kind of a new hire person is, technology's big right now. Everyone's using AI and trying to find shortcuts to do things, and sure, it's got its place in certain things. But sometimes that can be a little too much, and we want you to think for yourself and, how would you solve this problem, and show me what you're doing, what have you put together. So it's a different way seeing younger kids kind of come out of high school and college than what I was used to. We're used to hard workers and doing a lot of things for themselves. So it's hard to hear. Oh, we'll just ask AI, and we'll Google that. And some of that's necessary, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
It's kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, think for yourself. Like, what would you do? So that's one of the challenges kind of we're seeing with some of the younger kids. But that's just technology. That's not going away. That's what we got to deal with. Yeah. We'll work through it.
It can be used as a tool. That's very helpful. Would you say that experience says a lot? If a kid has an opportunity to maybe spend a summer doing some construction work, or even some of that field work, with the idea of potentially going into management, do you think that that's something that's definitely beneficial? Because I know sometimes you've talked about how everything's different, like every job's different. Mm-hmm. So your experience builds on each other. I have to believe that your time with cabinets and things actually helps you in some way.
Absolutely. You definitely need to get out in the field, and you don't need to necessarily do it for yourselves, but you need to see it. You need to understand how stuff goes together, like what we were just talking about with the curtain wall. Like, I found that out years later, just by watching, but it would have been good to know early on. So yeah, definitely getting out in the field. A lot of these programs in college, make you do internships over the summer, and you got to collect a certain amount of hours, and that's huge benefit, and I fully support that. I was, in my college experience, trained by the book for my first 3 years. I did my internships kind of the last couple years, and those internships and seeing it hands-on was almost better than those 3 years of books. Yeah. You learned so much more, and that last year of college for me came so much more naturally, having known what goes on and seeing it go together. So absolutely, any internship or out in the field hands-on experience some of our high schoolers or college kids can get will certainly help them, figure out their career a little bit more. And maybe some people did those internships and were like, this is not what I expected and went the other day. But that's good. That's good, right? Yeah. That's, we don't want people to go down the wrong path either.
Yeah.
I love that, encouraging those internships to know what you like versus not like.
Yeah.
I think that kind of falls in line with that mentor, a little bit. Like, you can kind of find that thing that you want before you spend all this time going to college doing everything, and then go, wow, I really hate this.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, even us here, we tend to send our engineers out to field work whenever we get a chance, because what you learn in school and what you see in the field can be
they're totally different.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's not even a question, right? Like I can't remember so many times the first time Samuel.
Oh man, I was the best. I was the best at the books.
He's the best at the books.
Yeah.
No, but you know, like
And then
those.
we had to learn. I don't know. Like you had me build a table out here. One of my first things I did when I started working here, and it's like. I had to. I'm embarrassed to say, but like I had to YouTube how do you put like the bit on the drill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's YouTube videos for that.
The smartest
so-
guy in the world,
Oh,
you know,
man.
in the firm or whatever, and all of a sudden he's like, "How do you do this?" But you know what? Here's the thing: that table still stands.
We're using it
Right.
right now.
It's right there.
Right out there. No, but you know, getting real world and hands-on experience is huge, and I think, you know, like you said, having kids get that is critical. So I think like just having opportunities, learning about firms. Here's the other thing: it's like sometimes I hear, "Hey, this prestige or that prestige." I remember being in college and thinking like, "Oh, I got an internship at Google or Apple." Apple was the big thing, and probably still is. But like, you know, it's one of like, you're one of however many people. I think you can go anywhere
Absolutely.
in any city, and you can contribute to society and be an awesome, you know, and learn a lot, have a livelihood, and contribute to America,
Yeah.
and making it, you know, making it even a better place. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, Brad, I think we're kind of running low on time here, and you know, we want to go ahead and wrap it up. And we're really excited about what Hines is doing.
Yeah.
You know, really excited about. You know, not only are they doing things, you know, in the city, that's really great work. So if anybody looks up your guys' work, it's really good looking stuff. But also helping, you know, in the communities.
Absolutely.
You know, that's something that we definitely really appreciate. And
Yeah.
you know, really appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me. This was great.